Hey guys, what's up? It is week 200. That's right, 200 of these things. Never missed a show, always roughly out at the same time. I know that I should have a big prize here, but I'm going to wait till episode 208, which will be the 4-year anniversary of when I started doing the weekly shows. So, hold your britches there. Yeah, I'm 107 years old apparently. But yeah, so at 208, I'll figure out some sort of prize package. I'm not really, it's not really the money or anything or putting something together. It's just the time. I just don't have much time, and I'd like to spend my free time watching movies and other stuff, So let's hop into this first movie, and this is definitely something special to me. This is second, third favorite movie of all time. So I'm not going to go over this entire box set, the Dawn of the Dead 4K from Second Sight, because I've probably talked about this movie to death, but I am going to talk about the special features disc and the extended cut and how it looks on 4K. Okay, now this from Second Sight has 3 versions of the film on there. It does not have the unauthorized red edition, which is all known footage of Dawn of the Dead put into one long thing that incorporates the extended and the Euro cut, the zombie cut. So okay, I actually recently just got an 85-inch QLED Samsung TV with 4K HDR and a new sound system, and I finished up the one movie I was halfway through on there. But it was a Blu-ray. It looked great, but I decided that the first 4K I was going to watch on the TV with HDR and everything was Dawn of the Dead. How could it not be this monster edition of Dawn of the Dead? So I put it in there. I turned off my clarity, those weird clarity settings that make everything look like a soap opera, because the first 3 seconds I was like, nope, that's got to be on because this looks weird. But after that, I had never seen Dawn of the Dead look so good, and I followed it up through, the old VHSs that you rent in the store, to the Anchor Bay DVDs, to their Blu-rays, and eventually, the Euro stuff, and finally this edition here. This is the best I've ever seen it, the best it's ever going to look, I'm sure of it. And so I put it in, and let's just talk a little bit about the movie. Like I said, we did a commentary for it. But Dawn of the Dead is a masterpiece. It's a special moment in time for independent filmmaking when they could do a lot of things. George Romero is my favorite director. I think he's the best. I think he's the most interesting. I think he has the most to say. I think he comes across the best without being preachy. I just think that all in all, it's perfect. Not to mention all the people that were a part of it, including Tom Savini's amazing special effects, the crazy cinematography, almost like guerrilla style, especially at the end. The way George Romero edits his films is completely different too. And he'll do his action fast cuts but matter of fact. And on top of that, basically, this is a continuation, sort of the story of Night of the Living Dead. And within that, it's genius, too, because Night of the Living Dead made in 1968, reflected its time, and made comments about that. But Dawn of the Dead is a sequel, and it's a progression of the zombie outbreak, but it reflects the time it was made as well, which is really freaking smart. And it's very hard to do a sequel like that. And they would continue with Day and Land and Diary and Survival. The latter 2, I'm not too huge on. But the first 3, I am absolutely in love with. And then the 4th, I have some love for as well. But, so Dawn of the Dead, it follows 2 SWAT guys, a helicopter pilot who does weather reports, and his girlfriend who works in the newscasting kind of area. So basically, we're introduced to that, a couple things right in the beginning here, which I love. We have that news kind of chaos newsroom setting, which George Romero, came from that kind of thing with doing commercials and everything. So I feel like one of the scariest aspects of the first 2 Dead films is the idea that we're seeing these kind of radio broadcasts, and makes it seem very real. At night, it was in black and white, so it had that even more realistic effect. But now we're seeing behind the scenes and the pure and utter chaos of everything, and just the corruptness of the character Givens, keeping the rescue stations rolling on the bottom so people go there. If people will tune out. Now, I must mention that I did watch the extended cut, like I'm saying, and that's the one I typically watch, even though the theatrical is preferred. And there is about 15 minutes. It's 15 minutes longer in the extended, so there's more shots of Givens and lines here and there without, and more gore and stuff like that. So, therefore, if I'm referencing little bits and pieces that you're not familiar with, that's probably because you're more familiar with the theatrical cut or the Euro zombie Italian second cut. But so I just love all that stuff going on. And later on, there's more of these things on the television they're watching with Millard Rausch, and his performance of Richard France is absolutely perfection. Just seeing it on the radio, his lines in this film get stuck in my head. They must be destroyed on sight, and just everything there. Just the dialogue is perfect, and everything about the movie's perfect. Not to mention the crazy special effects for the time. I know that some people say the blood looks, fake, but it all adds to a quality. And if you see something so many times and love it, that stuff just becomes another piece of another thing that you love about the movie, if that makes any sense. The four big people in here are David Emge, Scott Reiniger, Ken Foree, and Galen Ross. I think they're all fantastic. I think they have a fairly naturalistic quality, and a lot of Romero's movies do have that naturalistic quality about them, but there's these well-placed movie lines that are just absolutely perfect to me. Ain't it a crime? The only person who could ever miss with this gun would be the sucker with the bread to buy it. That's just such a genius 1970s quotable line. When there's no more room in hell. Just so many things here. The end is such a great climax because the group of survivors decide to hide out in a shopping mall during, the zombies as they increasingly gain numbers. And there's so many lines that say what's going on. You can't see, this place is so neatly wrapped, you can't see that it's a prison too. And eventually there's a giant climax at the end. There's a tragedy with the characters, and one of the best characters rising from the dead as a zombie of all time. There's another performance here where one of the characters is turned and they have the best zombie walk of all time. So there's just so much going on here. The idea that they're in the mall and they're infatuated with all these kind of consumerism stuff, and all the zombies are eventually, they're in the mall walking around, shuffling their feet, looking like shoppers that we would see on Black Friday. Romero's movies always get better with age. They always do, to me. A lot of, I'm not saying the latter ones. I know there's a lot of things there, but even in Diary, there's moments in that Diary, the message and stuff that you're like, he was ahead of his time on that one too. A lot of the stuff about the voices, so many voices on the internet blurring out the common sense voices, and there's just so much information on the internet now, it's blurring the real information. And it's hard for a lot of people to see that stuff, and everybody probably getting misinformation and that stuff, and that's a huge thing about Romero, is the misinformation. But I just could go on and on about this movie. It is like my second or third favorite movie, and truly one of the shining stars of horror films. And honestly, with Romero's, I love all sorts of films growing up, but Romero's films, Night, Dawn, and Day, they struck something in me where everything is held up to those, and everything I like really has a correlation within them. We were talking on the 22 Shots of Moods in Horror. We did the Cronenberg movies that I'm going to briefly talk about this week, and we saw the correlation between early Cronenberg and some early Romero, which is probably why I love Cronenberg. So it's kind of like a thing that I hyper-focus on as a young person, and then as I grow older, I kind of branch out with what I love. So I've always been a big fan of the zombie film, and I think Romero makes the best of them, and that's really what inspired my love for the zombie film in general. But anyways, just a fantastic movie filled with great moments and great characters, and I love how he handles the racist scenes in here with Wooly in the beginning, the SWAT guys. That feels really normal. Not normal, I don't want to say normal at all, because it feels very natural how racism does occur, and there's like somebody will say something and a lot of people will be like, you can tell it doesn't sit right with them, but they don't say anything, and it's just all going to blow up. But there's just so many great moments, and this movie obviously went on to inspire every zombie movie that ever came out after it. And as Del Toro said one time, which I absolutely loved, when he had an interview with George Romero on something, he said, "You inspired two zombie genres. The zombie genre, you created two genres, the zombie genre and the Italian zombie genre." And he most certainly did, because Lucio Fulci would take those zombies wrapped in sheets and zombie and just run with it in Dawn of the Dead, and run with it in zombie and make them really great. And that feels like a kind of a carryover from the old nuns in Alucarda dressed in those kind of weird robes and stuff. So it just feels very I don't know how to say this, like Catholic religious to wrap them up in these robes and stuff. And there's just so much good stuff about this movie that I can't say enough about it. It looks fantastic. There's noticing details I never noticed before, because there's a brilliant scene in the movie where there's spoilers here, but Roger has already been bitten and he knows he's on his last days, and they're just kind of enjoying the mall because they've secured it, and it has these great musical numbers in here, and they're all kind of playing the arcade and walking around. And Roger, he's eating olives right out of the jar when he's wearing this goofy hat and he looks so sick. And the music like peaks at this, and he drinks the olive juice just because who gives a shit at this point? It's kind of like something like, I always wanted to do this, or I used to do this, I'm gonna chug it. And when he's in the bed, they have the homemade hospital bed, and he's really hurt and sick, laying there struggling. I noticed for the first time in 4K, because it looks so good, that there's a couple bottles of olives sitting down there and the mess on the ground, and I was like, I would have never noticed that before. Also, you know, you see little details, because I was always one of these guys who's trying to point out all the different bikers in there, like, oh, who's that guy, which of these guys, how many of these guys are going to die, where do they die, and who's getting ripped apart at the end and stuff like that, because, like, I would hyper obsess about this and Dawn and Night, Dawn, and Day. I even used to write my own, I was like super nerd, like 12 years old, writing my own fan fiction, and even started writing some when I was in college, just carrying on to the bikers leading, what they were doing leading up to the mall. And I had all these characters named and stuff like that, and although some of them do have names like Mousy and Pedro and stuff like that, I've seen like just little you know, these informations that deep dive in there, and Blades and Sledge, of course, and whatever. But I've just always loved this movie. I adore it. There's nothing quite like it. Such amazing guerrilla independent filmmaking, but on a bigger scale, a scale that's unmatched when it comes to that kind of stuff. And there's just a community about it, you can tell. Everybody has so many nice things to say about George Romero, and you just want to be a part of it. You just feel that energy throughout. As far as the special features are concerned, like I said, the extended cut did have, I think the commentaries are probably carryovers. I'm not 100% sure if they did any new commentaries on here, but I'm going to read off the back because I did watch all the special features, or I have seen all the special features previously that are not new. But we have the theatrical cut, new 4K scan, all that kind of stuff. There's a commentary by Romero, Savini, Christine Forrest, and a new commentary by Travis Crawford. That's what I probably should have listened to, but I didn't get a chance. And then we have the extended Cannes cut, which is also known as the director's cut, which is inaccurate. It's not a director's cut, it's the extended cut. Years ago, Anchor Bay put it out as a director's cut double tape VHS. Produced using 4K scan of theatrical cut, original camera negative, and 4K scan of extended cut color reversal inter negative. So we have a commentary Richard P. Rubenstein, and then we have subtitles on this one for the first time on 4K, because I think the old other Blu-ray, my Blu-rays that I had from overseas did not have subtitles. So then we have the Argento cut, and that has a commentary by Ken Forey, Scott Reiniger, Galen Ross, David Emge, and I think this is old carryover from the Big Dawn of the Dead box set. Now here's the cool thing here. We have a Blu-ray 4th disc, which is Region B, so if you don't have a Region B player, you will not be able to play it. But just for you guys' knowledge, 4Ks are region free, so if you have a 4K player, you can play the 4K version in it. So then we have this new documentary here, or featurette, Zombies and Bikers, with John Apples, Roy Frumkes, Tom Savini, Christine Forrest, Tom Dubinsky, Tony Buba, Tasso, that's Sledge, and a whole bunch of the Zombies and Bikers. And that's really fun because we have a lot of the bit players in here. You see them all, you know, they're older, and they're mentioning the stuff that was cut and all sorts of stuff. It's pretty in-depth. It's fairly long, 58 minutes, I think, which I love seeing that. Made by David Gregory. Loved it. You get to see the point of view from a lot of people that you haven't heard talk about the movie. Because then we have new one, Memories of Monroeville Mall. This was probably my favorite, I think, featurette on here. It was a tour of the mall with Michael Gornick, Tom Savini, Tom Belinsky, and Tasso. 34 minutes, and it has all these guys going through the Monroeville Mall and kind of remembering and everything, and they're having a lot of fun, and you see their energy, and you can tell they have, you know, a good friendship among each other. And there's these they do all sorts of things on there. They go up to the roof, which I loved. So yeah, that was really great and really cool. And this is probably like the last time these guys are going to be interviewed about these movies. So. And then, not saying, like, it's just, like, because I think this is the definitive release. Like, I don't see anybody else putting this something else out, except in the U.S. if they have something, but I feel like they just carry over the features. Then we have new Raising the Dead, the production logistics with Michael Gornick, Christine Forrest, John Apples, Tom Dubinsky. That's really cool because they actually do get in depth a little bit about the alternate ending filmed and all that kind of stuff. Remember, everybody always talked about the negative ending or the downbeat ending. And then we have the new FX of Dawn with Tom Savini, 13 minutes. New Dummies, an interview with Richard France, which I could have swore Richard France was dead, so it was great to hear him talk about that. And I never knew he had a part in Night of the Living Dead, which I learned. And then we have new The Lost Romero Dawn interview. It was a previously unreleased archive interview, and some of that stuff I think was, it felt like I think I seen some of that interview maybe in the Day of the Dead stuff, but because he says the real trolls that like Day of the Dead, I feel like I've heard that line before. So I feel like maybe it's just the uncut version of an interview or something like that. Then we have Super 8 mall footage of Zombie Extra Ralph Langer with option. This I did not get a chance to watch. And then we also have the original Document of the Dead by Roy Frumkes and the definitive cut, which I have watched before, and the Dead Will Walk 2014 documentary 80 minutes, which I've also watched. And then we have a freaking 3-disc CD set, the Goblin soundtrack, and then we have the Day Wolf Library compilation soundtracks 1 and 2. And then we have a freaking Dissecting the Dead book in here, and then to top the whole shebang off, we have a novelization of Dawn of the Dead in here, which is great to have too. And it looks great. It's also in this deluxe case. It's heavy duty. It has a bunch of pictures on the, I think the Dissecting the Dead, I skimmed through it a little bit. I think there's some cool pictures in here. Let's just look at it again, because I didn't get a chance to read the book, and I love the cover art on this thing. You'll be seeing it in the thing. Oh, it doesn't, yeah, there's some pictures and everything. This I did not get the chance to look through, some posters and everything like that. Oh, yeah, very cool. Look at this Power Project, Violence, Theme for Journey. This is so cool. This is legit. Then we have like music notes and tons of, this is awesome. This is one of my favorite releases of all time for a movie that I can't, this movie deserves all the releases. And this is one of the movies that if somebody's like, I don't really like Dawn of the Dead, I don't really get it, I don't even engage. And I know it sounds like ignorance or arrogance, but I just can't comprehend. It's just pointless for me to engage with them about film. I'm sorry. I know it sounds like oh, you're such a dude. I just can't do it. It's just, I just would hurt myself. If I just like, I can't understand. I'm sure people have movies like that too, or that I don't like, and they're like, you're so dumb. But like, I always felt like if you don't like a classic, that it's probably, and 99% of the people like it, there's probably something wrong with you. And that'll probably come up later today in this interview. And I'll admit, like, if I'm wrong, some stuff does not connect, but I can't see this connecting with a person who loves zombie films or loves independent films or loves American independent films. I mean, Romero is like a regional filmmaker at the best, like the ultimate regional filmmaker. I don't, and I mean that as the utmost compliment, because it's just you get that great quality filmmaker within a regional filmmaker with George Romero, and he's the best. He's the best for it. And like him and Tobe Hooper with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think those are, and Night of the Living Dead, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think are like what inspired, for me, the American independent film and all the great ones that have come afterwards. So yeah, just a great release of, you know, one of the greatest things ever. And I just love it. Highly recommended. You gotta have it. I got 2 because I ordered 2 just in case one would get damaged in the mail, and I'm just getting like crazy like that in my old age. So yeah, Dawn of the Dead 4K. I'm gonna check out the theatrical cut too, and the zombie cut and all that kind of stuff. And if there's anything to report that's not great, I will be here in the opening of the videos. Oh, did I mention David Gregory did do the featurettes, and he always does a great job, and he did a freaking fantastic job with them here. I was really happy to see his name, directed by David Gregory, who runs Severance. So yeah, get this. You need it. You need this in your life. Okay, that was probably the most I had to talk about was in the Dawn of the Dead, but out of all the stuff for obvious reasons. But now we have the Treasure of Dracula, the sexy vampire version. This is Santo, the Silver Mask wrestler in the Treasure of Dracula, the sexy vampire version. First time on DVD. First time in English and color. So apparently there was 2 versions of Santo, this particular movie. There's a black and white one with the nudity cut, and then there's a colorized version shot for more the you know, global market and stuff like that. They would do that with a lot of, you know, other films. Like I feel like Jess Franco and John Rowland had to shoot movies like that too. But okay, so I've heard of Santo's name a bunch of times. People always like Santo, and like his kind of like you know, tropes, or really the character type has been put into more independent movies that I've seen. Like there'll always be a masked wrestler, and that's just really kind of a popular staple in Mexican horror films, is this masked wrestler Santo. And there's a lot of movies. This guy who plays Santo is in like, I don't know, like 50, 60 of these movies. And this is the first one I've ever seen. This is put out by VCI. This is a very low budget, cheap movie, you can tell. But I was kind of impressed how it looked, really, because it's a 4K scan. I didn't know what it would look like. Yes, and it is like kind of maybe faded a little bit, but I was impressed with the quality of it for the most part, considering. And this starts off, and I went in blind. I didn't know it was going to be the sexy vampire version. I didn't know what that meant for a Santo movie, okay? So it starts off and it feels very 60s television, spy stuff, goofy, mechanical stuff, whatever, you know what I mean? Like stuff that's scientifical nonsense, like we're going to travel through time. Everyone is so poorly dubbed in English, I feel like they just grabbed the actors who speak Spanish and were like, now read this in English. It's like, I don't speak English very well. Just here's it is. Read it phonetically. And I feel like that's kind of what they did. So like somebody dubbed over that was just reading English phonetically because it comes across really awkward. So essentially we have Santo, who is a machismo guy, but he's also a good-hearted guy. So he wants to somehow test out his new time machine, but it basically sends somebody back into like a different ancestor or something like that. Don't ask me how it works. I don't know. But essentially it's just this weird spinning thing, the typical stuff you'd see in a haunted house. So he sends back his beautiful wife. She ends up in the time. They're monitoring all of it. Somehow they can see it. She ends up back in this weird time where she's being preyed upon by this crazy vampire guy. There's a couple kind of doctors trying to help her, but that's not going to stop this vampire from going after her. And about 15 minutes in the movie, I was like, okay, we got this cheesy kind of fun thing. Some of the sets look cool. There's decent atmosphere, like cemeteries and stuff and labs, and I'm enjoying it. But then, about, like I said, 15 minutes into the movie, the vampire takes this woman back to his headquarters, and then like I see these two women laying on slabs, and their breasts are pointed up, and they're nude, and I was like, wait a minute. I did not expect to see anything explicit in this kind of movie. Tonally, it feels like a 60s TV kind of serial, something that would be kind of parodied later on. And what proceeds is the most boobage I've seen in a long time. And I was just like, I'm very shocked and taken back. Santo, I didn't know you were like this. No, but there was so many women, like, completely nude, although they were wearing flesh merkins or some sort of coverings there. But I was just kind of surprised that this was made in 68, 69, and it had that much nudity and stuff. Most I can think of for this kind of movie, to be honest. So this was, I guess, the international version and in color for the first time. So they shot two versions, like I said, one in black and white, one in color. So what proceeds is some weird time traveling stuff. A hooded figure who's after the vampire ends up having a buried treasure. It's Santo and this evil hooded figure are after it. So not only is it a weird vampire period piece that somehow incorporates a lot of the pieces of Dracula, including the whole lame gag where it's like Dracula's name, the guy's name is Alucard, and you're like, Alucard, it's like, it's that spell with the whole mirror gag Dracula. They do it in Monster Squad, which is a kid's movie, which makes a little bit more sense, but they do it in some other ones too. I was surprised that they did handle some of the vampire mythology about the soil, which I was like, that's kind of neat that they incorporated the soil must come from, they said when he was buried in it, or, from his homeland is the one I think in the actual novelization of Dracula. So they did some stuff that kind of took me back a little bit and also surprised me with the plentiful nudity. Did not expect to see that. And it gets absolutely ridiculous. Of course, there's a wrestling sequence. How could you not? But I enjoyed myself. I'm not going to lie. It was way better than expected. In the first 10 minutes, I was like, we're just going to have some laughs and have some really poor dubbing. But I was kind of taking it. It's better with the atmosphere than one would expect. It has a little bit more truth to the vampire mythos that I expected, or really kind of was just a little intrigued how they're going to handle it, because I've seen so many vampire films and Dracula films and whatnot. And then I also was shocked by the rampant nudity, but they did a really good job for how low budget. You could tell this movie, I was just like, it's so cheap, I can't believe I can't believe I'm seeing anything but darkness, but it is enjoyable, and I would like to check out some more of the Santo movies. It was one of these genres, like these subgenres or these kind of films that there were so many of them. I was intimidated because there had been so many. I have not seen any, and there's just like 30, 40 of them, and I was like, where do I start? So give me some Santo recommendations. What are the big ones? There were some trailers on here for some other ones where it looks like he fights a werewolf and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure he has a million. I know there's like ones where he fights an Aztec mummy. I've seen the titles. It's just that there was just kind of intimidating because I had no information about them personally, But enjoyable. There's also a comparison between the black and white and color version on there, so check it out from VCI. Okay, this next one here is Journey into Fear by Dark Sky, and really this is gonna be sold on its cast. So this is kind of, I guess you'd say, like a spy kind of thriller, movie. And here's who we have in it. I'm going to start off small and I'm going to get bigger. Sam Waterston, Shelley Winters, Ian McShane, Donald Pleasance, and Vincent Price. That's right. And Donald Pleasance and Vincent Price do share a couple lines back and forth, which made me very happy to see, because I don't know if they've ever shared the screen. I know they were in Monster Club together, but they didn't share any screen time. But okay, here we go. We have Sam Waterston, who works, I believe, for some sort of oil company. He's traveling across the country, and right in the beginning, there's an attempt at his life. He kind of communicates with, like, the wherever he's at, the foreign people and the foreign, like, maybe he goes to the embassy and stuff and talks to people, and they're going to try to protect him. He ends up getting on a boat because he's supposed to, I don't know exactly the intricacies, who's he supposed to meet and what's he supposed to be, but there's people trying to stop him because there's going to be a price increase on stuff, and they don't want that, or they want the deal to work some other way. But he starts to meet a bunch of, kind of eccentric characters. You have Vincent Price playing Arab guy, and Donald Pleasance playing an Arab guy. They don't wear any makeup, though, so I guess it's probably less offensive. And Vincent Price doesn't even do a voice, while Donald Pleasance kind of does one. But I feel like Donald Pleasance has played so many weird characters like that, from the character in Phenomenon, the Scottish guy, and the one in, Murder, what is that? Model Murder, the 85 one where he's like an Italian detective. He's always doing, or Wake and Fright, he's always doing these weird accents, and it's just like, they're not, and I don't know how good they are, but I sure do love Donald Pleasance. He's one of my favorite actors. Just really fun to watch. So, Donald Pleasance claims to be like a tobacco salesman. Vincent Price is some sort of doctor, and we have all these big elaborate stories about them where they're talking to Sam Waterston, and Shelley Winters and her husband are always constantly fighting. So it's just essentially this boat trip where somebody's going to try to kill him, and it's the quiet assassin Ian McShane, but who hired him? So who's who? There's twists, there's turns, there's some action, and some people get killed. I did enjoy myself, but it's really mostly for the cast. The cast really pushes this one forward. It feels like Agatha Christie, kind of who's done it, who can I trust, who can I not. There's not many special features on it. I thought it looked okay, but it's worth the price of admission to see that cast, especially the one line that Donald Pleasance and Vincent Price share against each other. It's like, "Good morning," or something like that. I have a weird obsession where I have to see all of them act, because I know, like, against each other, because I know Pleasance worked with Lee in Raw Meat, and Pleasance worked with Cushing in The Flesh of Fiends, I believe. And he worked with, I don't know if he ever worked face-to-face with John Carradine, but of course all the other ones did work together, all four of them in The House of Long Shadows, and a bunch of other movies too. But yeah, anyways, just like seeing these classic kind of actors interact, it's always a blast. But Journey into Fear from Dark Sky, we're checking out if it sounds like it's up your alley, but it's a little lackluster, but brought up a little bit by the cast, so there's that. And it's an international. It feels like they're in a bunch of different places, so that's cool as well. Okay, this next one here, if you guys don't know, they drew the picks for the summer series, Podcast Under the Stairs. If you guys don't know this is a big elaborate series they do every year, and now they're on 2010 to 2019. It's the final one. I threw my name to be in there. I basically have to, it's a really complex show to explain the rules and everything like that, but I drew 2016 and 2017, so I have to pick 5 films that I want to put forward, whittle it down to 2, and all the other hosts do that as well. And all together, we're going to cover 12 films and put forth the best 3 to represent that year. So I'm kind of picking up and watching some 2016, 2017 movies to get into what I want to pick. And there's a couple ones I missed, a couple ones I want to revisit. So there's going to be a bunch of that. And eventually, I'm going to have to watch all the ones that they pick to whittle it down. So honestly, I decided to pop in Tragedy Girls from technically 2017. So it has to get the release in 2017 according to Internet Movie Database, whichever place it was first released, the country of origin. So Tragedy Girls falls under 2017. This is one I missed, and it sounded right up my alley because honestly I like stuff like Spontaneous, which is a great high school little thing, and I feel like this is an Assassination Nation. I like high school horror, high school oriented movies when they kind of turn the whole genre on its head or are self-aware or doing something a little bit different. I can't watch legit teenage angst without being like or stuff like that. There's certain things that just make me cringe and be like, that's so stupid or so embarrassing. Tragedy Tragedy Girls is a comedy. They're playing into it, and I really thought it was funny. I think it's dark. I think it's really kind of going to rub people the wrong way, but I have a real sick sense of humor, if you guys didn't know that. So I was laughing throughout. And I feel like this movie, in the tone, kind of, it's darker, I would say, but it's a kind of a precursor to Freaky with Vince Vaughn, which I really liked from last year. Because we have Kevin Durant in this, or Kevin Durant, I think it's Kevin Durant, who feels kind of like the character of Vince Vaughn from Freaky a little bit. So essentially what's happening is there's these two best friends who are obsessed with social media. That's all they care about is the attention, and they have these, there's a serial killer going around town stalking young girls. He has like his type and everything like that, and he's mutilating them, yada, yada, yada. It's played by Kevin Durant in a fantastic performance. This guy is really good. He's great in Real Steel. He's great in The Dark Was the Night, which has a terrible ending, but he's a very good performer in it. He's kind of an underrated actor. I think everything I've seen him in, he's done a very good job. And this one is probably one of my favorite performances he's done. Very funny in it, very goofy, kind of your typical, I'm a big dumb killer cat type. So essentially, the girls are trying to kind of get views and get attention through this moniker they have called Tragedy Girls, where they have outrage towards, public figures for not solving this murder. So one day they decide to stake out and try to figure out who this killer is and kidnap him, and have this elaborate plan where they're going to have him kill people and then kind of like teach them how to kill, all this kind of stuff like that. But he's not having any of it. So they keep the killer hidden while they start to carry out more murders and start to benefit social media wise, by killing these people and making these fake outrage and everything like that. And it's so like laugh cringy where you're like, oh my God, they're like basically acting sad. Like there's such a tragedy. This person's dead. It's like, you killed them. But it's just so funny. A lot of the dialogue is great. The interactions between them, how selfish they are. I love, and it's a pretty decent gore if I remember. This is very funny. This has got to have a certain like tone to it. It's dark, and real ballsy for the time, especially when we had all that violence in schools and everything like that. Could rub some people the wrong way. Like I said, this is kind of a humor that only a certain people will get. I think for fans of Heathers or something like that, this might be up your alley. I know a lot of people say Heathers doesn't age well, but I think it ages brilliantly. Okay. Same with Spontaneous or Freaky or Assassination Nation. These are the ones that kind of come to me. Maybe Final Girls as well has that kind of tone. This is darker than a lot of those though. Anyways, I really liked it. I enjoyed myself. I laughed quite a bit. There's some really good lines in here. Just very funny. And geez, who else is in here? Who's the big Craig Robinson? He's absolutely fantastic too. Very funny. Check it out. It's not going to be for everybody, but if it hits your sweet spot, if it gets to your funny bone, you'll love it like me. So okay, we're going to be a little bit more brief with these because we kind of covered them in depth on the 22 Shots of Moods and Horror in Cronenberg Volume 2 with Watson, special guest Watson on there. So anyways, this is Rabid by David Cronenberg. This movie is one that I've always had a love for. I saw it very young, and the movies I tend to love the most are ones that I saw young that I loved then, and I grow up and I watch them and I see more in them and I love them even more. Like Dawn of the Dead or Day of the Dead or, Return of the Living Dead or Henry, stuff like that, where I've had a weird childhood, I know, but Hellraiser, all sorts of stuff like that, but that stuff that I saw young left an impression on me, and this one is no different. So this is the second kind of horror film Cronenberg directed after Shivers. It shares a lot of the DNA of Shivers, shares a lot of the DNA of the early 70s nihilistic stuff or whatever you say it. I feel like some of the stuff's right out of Night of the Living Dead or The Crazies, and then I feel like it kind of inspired some more stuff in the 70s as well. So we have this couple who get in a motorcycle accident close to a plastic surgery clinic, definitely making fun of those people, kind of in a way, poking fun at them, which is way early than a lot of people would have done that. So it happens near a plastic surgery clinic. Marilyn Chambers, the famous porn star, gets caught under the bike and she needs skin grafts. They do an experimental procedure on her where the skin graft somehow creates a parasitic thing within her body that comes out and feeds on blood. But after the people she feeds on, they don't just wake up and go about their day. They seem sluggish, they don't remember, but they also become rabid. And this kind of disease spreads among people. It's fatal, and it becomes an all-out crazy pandemic. So, anyways, I love this movie. Like I said, I think that Marilyn Chambers is fantastic in it, and it's really crazy that she is a porn star, but she's not super highly sexualized, even though she's using some sort of sexual nature to lure these men in and other people to feast upon them. Obviously, the little mechanism of the parasite underneath is like a weird mixture of sexual organs and stuff like that. The science behind it is a little strange. I don't understand how that would work, but I guess that's science fiction. That's definitely a mutation of sorts. But I just love a lot of this movie. Like, there's just lots of crazy things going on. It has a real post-apocalyptic look to it at times with the people in the gas mask and just lots of dark moments with Joe Silver and his family. Joe Silver's fantastic in this movie. Great voice, great character. And kind of always has that ineffective male lead like that Cronenberg would like to use for a lot of his films. Almost the kind of, you could project on them or you know what I mean? Or they're not really, they're kind of a shell of themselves or just lost in what to do. I just think this is one of his best. I know it's not one of his most popular, but I like this kind of scope and craziness about it. There's lots of great scenes, including a mall Santa Claus that I love. Car crash. Somebody getting in a fight over some barbecue half chicken. Just love the hell out of the movie. I like that it takes place in this kind of plastic surgery clinic where he's always kind of making fun of ridiculous modern science like The Brood, which is absolutely ridiculous, or that kind of science gone wrong with The Fly, or in Scanners, where we have this drug that is creating these telepathic or telekinetic creatures. So not creatures, they're still humans, but gives them the power. Anyways, just love this movie. It has a super dark, bleak ending. And the line when she says "I'm still Rose," that really resonated with me very much this time. There's some special features on here, including some of the stuff that the Arrow release had in an old interview with David Cronenberg. I think there's some new stuff as well. I thought the print looked really good. I was very happy with how it looked. This one's just a great movie. Very interesting. Check out the podcast if you want to hear more on it. Always loved it. So, Rabid. Okay, the next one I'm going to be the most brief with, and this is David Cronenberg's Scanners. Also a classic. This one's got a huge reputation, and I don't want to be too negative, but we get into it on 22 Shots. I like the movie. I think it's great, but I think the shining star of this film is Michael Ironside. I feel like it's very much X-Men-based kind of deal. So we have these kind of people that have these telepathic or telekinetic powers where they can kind of control people or get them to do things and explode their fucking heads, which is one of the most insane scenes ever, and the movie starts out in such a highlight, it's never duplicated throughout. The ending's fantastic, too. It has some really cool set designs in here with like the art character and the big head and that whole weird kind of scene there. But so we have this character Stephen Lack, who is a scanner. He's social misfit. He doesn't really fit in, and he's got void of all character, to maybe the detriment of the film. So anyways, he is kind of sucked into this scanner program by Patrick McGoohan, great actor from Braveheart, and I think show. He was in some other shows too. The Prisoner, I think that was the famous show he was in, and Escape from Alcatraz, of course, where he played a warden. So, anyways, he brings him into this scanner program to track down a scanner who went kind of AWOL, a villainous scanner in Michael Ironside. His name is Daryl Revick, and he basically has to infiltrate a lot. So we have this spy kind of thing. He's meeting a bunch of scanners, and a bunch of people are trying to kill him throughout the movie. That's kind of the end. That's kind of the whole deal here. There's some twists and turns. There's an absolutely weird scene involving a nervous system computer scan, which I always was like, I don't understand. Oh, well, I mean, I'll buy the scanners, but I'm not going to buy him scanning a computer. Maybe I'm just, dying on the wrong hill, but it still always seemed a little silly to me. Lauren Stain is in it as well. Lauren Stain is in Rituals and Rolling Vengeance. And some other, and Darkman 2. I hate Meatloaf. Just kind of a decent, solid character actor. But like I said, Michael Ironside steals the show. It's an early performance. Just everything he says is great. There's some video footage of watching him that they documented, which I think is great. He's talking about just all sorts of weird things. You could tell he's like kind of a schizophrenic or whatever, man. But it's the scanner kind of that it's hard to block out the voices. So there's lots of cool stuff. The music by Howard Shore is fantastic. There's a lot of violence, like I said, but the end and the beginning are really the highlights and special effects. I really like the movie. I just don't love it as much as something like Rabid or Dead Zone or you know, a Shivers or Videodrome or The Fly, you know. It's not up to snuff out of those early Cronenberg ones. It probably is my least favorite. And I know that's kind of weird because this one it's got the name recognition, it's got the 4 sequels, and it's got the amazing cover art. But hey, it is what it is. I like it. I just don't like it as much as the other ones. So that's Scanners. This Blu-ray looked really good from Criterion. Has features on there as well. New restored, supervised by Cronenberg. A new documentary in the film's effects, featuring interviews with Cronenberg's collaborators, Mental Saboteur. A new interview with actor Michael Ironside. I didn't see that, or I would have freaking watched it. I'm sorry. Sometimes I slack on the special features. And then we have an interview with Stephen Lack from 2012, and an excerpt from 1981 interview with Cronenberg on CBC's The Bob McLean Show. And then we have Stereo in 2K, one of his early films, and trailers, radio spots, and a booklet. So it's a nice release, but you know, it's not my favorite. The case is really, the cover art's really strange, kind of disturbing, but I guess that's what you want to go for with Body Horror. So anyways, yeah, that's Scanners. And then the last of the Cronenberg movies is one that he didn't actually write himself, and this is The Dead Zone, starring Christopher Walken, based off the Stephen King story. Yeah, this is a strange one. This is, you know, we had a good conversation about this on 22 Shots, I think, kind of talking a little bit about it. But Johnny is the school teacher in Christopher Walken, and the opening of the movie, he's so young, he's so, like, charming and funny, and you just really like him. You buy him as a school teacher, kind of eccentric, but kind of, like, just good-natured, and you really like him. So he's madly in love with Brooke Adams. They have a great relationship. On the way home, one day, he has a car accident, and he's put into a coma for 5 years. When he wakes up, the world's kind of changed around him. His girlfriend's moved on, and he notices that he has some weird kind of power where he has premonitions where he can see the future. Right off the bat, he touches the nurse's hand, and he notices, he warns her about something. This kind of throws him in the spotlight, and he is kind of being, it's a weird thing where people don't want to believe him, and when they do believe him, they kind of fear him at the same time. And then we have this kind of episodic thing where we have these 3 different kind of stories going along, I feel like, and there's like kind of the main story with the guy running for president, played by not president, Senate right now, senator, by Martin Sheen, or is it Senate, whatever, yeah, senator, Martin Sheen, kind of coming up in the background, and Brooke Adams popping up here and there, but it kind of becomes episodic where he helps Tom Skerritt try to figure out who a killer is, and we get some cool stuff there, good reveal too, and then we have some stories about him teaching like a kid with Anthony Zerbe as his father and all sorts of things like that. And the final story involves a politician, which I really liked, and it's very Stephen King, I think. Herbert Lom is in this film as his doctor, and Herbert Lom is a shining star in the film. Absolutely love him. He's got the best line in here. Interactions with him and Walken are great. Herbert Lom, another one of these actors like a Donald Pleasence or Vincent Price that I'm always perk up when I see them. Always love them. And I just feel like no matter how low rent somebody would think the movie is, they're not going to get a low rent performance out of Herbert Lom ever. But yeah. Anyways, I think this is a great movie. I think that Walken really helps the film. I think the end is a tearjerker. I really do. I think it's a great film. I thought the Blu-ray looked fairly good, actually. I heard some negative things about it. I thought it looked better than expected from hearing those things. I thought it looked good. No subtitles, though, which kind of bummed me out. But anyways, that is Dead Zone. And I think there is a couple features on here. We have an audio commentary with Stephen Jones and film critic Kim Newman. The featurettes Memories of the Dead Zone, the look of the Dead Zone, the visions and horror from the Dead Zone, and the politics of the Dead Zone. I feel like a slacker. I should have watched those. But yeah, that is The Dead Zone from 1983, made the same year as Videodrome. So he was very busy that year. Okay, so for the Patreon pick, 2 people wanted me to do Amityville Horror, the original. So I kept them both in the hat, and I did the Amityville Horror a little bit ago. So Jonathan Wilhelm got drawn out the second time, and we kind of discussed that I would just review Amityville 2, The Possession, which I have also not seen, from 1982. Yeah. And I feel like this is an Italian co-production. Dino De Laurentiis produced it, so you know what that means. It's going to be way sleazier and more ridiculous. And it's funny because he actually produced The Dead Zone too, which is cool. So, anyways, Amityville 2, The Possession. This is the prequel to the original George Lutz story, which is supposedly based on a true story. Well, it is based on a true story, but we're going to believe what the Lutzes said. But David DeFeo murdering his whole entire family along those lines. So, basically what we have here is Burt Young moving into the family with his kind of older teenage son, his wife, and what is it, 3 kids or something along those lines? I think it is 3 kids. So, right right away. This doesn't take any time to get started in the first half. It's unlike Amityville where Amityville starts off pretty quick with the hauntings and spooky shit, but this is almost immediately. Burt Young walks in a house and he's like, and you can tell he's kind of an uptight prick and kind of you think he's probably abusive. Maybe got mad and slapped his kids a couple times. You get that impression, but almost immediately, like, he starts to kind of slip and the family starts to slip, and we see this weird relationship between the teenage son and teenage daughter where you're like, where it's definitely incestuous, and it goes there. It really does go there. It becomes sleazy and dark, and it's almost like they're believing everything David DeFeo said, even though I'm pretty sure he's probably full of shit. So, anyways, it's going off the real, like, if there was demonic possession kind of shit. So, there's some really cool scenes in here where they bring in the priest to bless the place, and Burt Young doesn't want any part of it, and he's and this kind of impressed me because we're standing there with Burt Young, and all the people walk away and go into the living room to bless the place, the priest and the family, and you hear him talking. And instead of following him in or cutting, we stay with Burt Young for a little bit. And I was just like, that's a very nice touch to see the kind of anger on him, or see how he's feeling and everything like that. I thought that was a really nice touch and different too. It's a dark movie. It's pretty dark, and we know what's going to happen. It's kind of like the Titanic. Well, we know it's going to sink. We know what's going to happen to them. And I thought the first half was really solid, really good. But then we kind of go with the second half, and we kind of have the one hit I have on the Amityville Part 1, where we follow the priest too much, and they don't ever really intermingle with the family. This priest does, but you know what I mean? And we follow this whole priest story, and it becomes this kind of second-rate possession film with the priest trying to fight the house and take care of everything. And I just didn't have much time for that half of the movie. The first half I thought was really good, really solid. The second half, I could take it or leave it. It's not horrible, but overall it becomes a good movie because of it. But the first half is pretty special. Second half is pretty mediocre, and I don't want to be a jerk about it. It's very generic. But hey, it's the Amityville 2 Possession. Obviously inspired by doing Exorcist kind of stuff if they have a possession in there, so you know where it's going to go. And I enjoy the movie. I think it's good. I just don't love it. I put it on par with the first one, maybe a little better, because I like them both. I think they're both good movies. I like them much better than the remake and much better than another ghost movie I'm going to talk about this week. But yeah. Okay, this next one I'll be really brief with. This is a Survive 05, and this is Constantine. I remember this came out. I was not familiar with the comics of Constantine. And it was at a time when, like, Keanu Reeves didn't have a good, everybody was like, it's Keanu Reeves. He's kind of mediocre, kind of bland. I don't hate Keanu Reeves, but he's not the most versatile actor. And I don't know if Constantine, the character, needs to be versatile. And I've heard a lot of people say he does a good job in this. That's how Constantine is, constantly smoking cigarettes. But I don't know. It's just, okay. So I didn't have much time for this movie when it came out. Rewatching it, I feel kind of the same way. I don't think it's a bad movie. I don't think it's poor. I think the idea that this is a kind of a comic book movie and it has a lot of dark elements in there kind of excite people, and I can understand that. So Constantine is this damned guy who, he basically performs possessions to help people and fights demons and all that kind of stuff, but he's damned, and he is sick and dying and not doing too well, probably because he smokes 1 million cigarettes a day, and he gets drug into this kind of story about Rachel Weisz's sister killing herself. She doesn't believe that she could have committed suicide, and he basically is going to try to help her fix the situation. Meanwhile, demons are attacking him and stuff because there's kind of like a turn. Tilda Swinton is in here and she plays an angel. Love her. She's great actress. Pruitt Taylor, whatever his name is, the guy with the stigmatism in his eye, is also in here as a priest who helps out Constantine. Also a fantastic actor, and he's got a pretty cool scene in a convenience store, grocery, I guess a gas station or whatever, drinking a lot of, or trying to drink a lot of alcohol. So, like, there's a lot of cool things about the movie. Like, I think that the look, sometimes there'll be these really nice shots of, like, them just standing in office with, like, windows and, like, the shades and stuff. And I was like, this reminds me kind of a film noir-ish, which I think is cool. So I kind of like that stuff a bit. I do like that it gets a little weird. And it does get kind of decently action-paced, but it doesn't really keep my attention. And, like, I think I have a weird thing where, like, I like mythology of other religions, or dark mythology, or Lovecraftian mythology, or mysterious mythology, but when we start getting into, like, the Christian mythology and changing it and making it, or doing weird things with it, This one really comes really angsty, and that line where he's like, I know one Jeremy always quotes it and laughs at it. He's like, "God's just a kid with an ant farm." Doesn't it? It just sounds way too edgy, like, and it just dates itself. Where you're like, okay, we got it. Life sucks. It's dark, and it's just not much humor within it. And it could have used some humor. Maybe there is humor I'm not seeing, but this movie could have used some humor. It really could have. And Shia LaBeouf's in here too. And I know it's like people are like, but this movie doesn't need humor. Well, I just can't take it seriously. It just doesn't do much for me. I don't think it's bad. I don't hate it. I like it decently. It's just nowhere near my top 10 of 2005. And that's probably not that hard of a list to get on. Not to be too negative. But yeah. So Constantine, I watched it on Vudu or Amazon. I have one of us bought it on digitally. I don't remember when, but yeah. So I mean, check it out. A lot of people really like it, and it's got a good cast. Tilda Swinton's fantastic, and Peter Stormare is in here as the devil, which is one of the weirdest devil performances I've ever seen. To be honest, I'm not sure how I feel about it, but he's a great actor nonetheless. So, anyways, Constantine, 2005. And there's a really cool bug demon. That part is actually awesome. I'll give it up for the bug demon. I thought that was a cool touch. Yeah. And the CGI does not look that bad for 2005, to be honest. It's not like horrible, embarrassing, or anything like that. It's not really what does it. It's kind of the tone. And maybe that is the tone of Constantine, but maybe it works better staying on a comic book page. I don't know. And a lot of people do enjoy this one, so hey. All right, we're here for Blindspot. And yeah, this is my pick. I didn't do Hour of the Wolf this week. I had a short week, so I was like, I'm in a long week, so I basically squeezed in The Conjuring, which was a movie I had not seen. It came out in 2013. It was hugely popular, and it was a movie that I looked at, and I just could definitely tell that it was not really up my alley. It's not really exactly something that I would be wholly invested in. I like old ghost movies from the 70s, and I like a lot of foreign ghost films like Satan's Slaves or anything possession, supernatural films, but as it comes to American movies, the mainstream ghost stories always just rub me the wrong way. So I put it off for years, so we finally got a chance to watch it. And I had recently been watching the Amityville movies. I watched Amityville Remake, Amityville 2 Possession, so I've been watching a lot of Amityville. So, geez, I don't even know how to go about this. This isn't for me.
It's I don't know. Like we watched it. Was Exorcist part of the Blindspot?
Yeah, Exorcist 3 was. And I also recently watched The Exorcist and The Exorcist 3. I've seen most of these movies. I hadn't seen the Amityville and Amityville Possession, but I've seen or Exorcist 3. Those were all first time watches.
Right.
Which is strange. Like it's a genre that I always kind of avoid. It's not really my thing, like I said. Some of the older ones I really enjoy though. This follows who is it? The Warrens. I can't think of their first names.
Jeff?
No, it's not Jeff. I don't even know why you said that.
I don't know why.
It's not even close to Jeff. The Warrens, who are real figures in the, I guess you'd say, paranormal world. But they were shysters, right? The whole thing is... I don't believe in ghosts. I'm sorry. The whole thing is stupid as shit to me. I think there may be a scientific explanation to some of this stuff, but it always just... I know that's a movie. It's based on a true story. The Exorcist is based on a true story. Amityville Horror is based on a true story. And those things I respect to a certain extent, probably because they have such a strong actors in them. And The Exorcist it's about human interactions between the characters as well as the possession, you know? And it has other storylines going on. As does this. The Conjuring basically follows the Warrens who, they basically are contacted by this family. This is supposedly a true story as well. Just like any horror movie based on a true story, it's obviously going to have some things that aren't true about it. So the Warrens show up to this house of Ron Livingston, I think it is. Ron Livingston, or whatever, from Office Space and Band of Brothers. Him and his wife, and how many kids do they have? 3?
5.
5 kids. They're all interchangeable. They're just the same kid. It's like Amityville Horror where you barely... Like the first one where you're like, how many kids? They're kind of all the same character. Are being haunted in this house. I think people like this movie a lot, and I understand it, because it's a throwback to those 70s movies that they watched and they loved. And instead of watching, 20 of those, it just does beat by beat the greatest hits of all these movies. And I know supposedly this story is based on true stories, so they could say this stuff happened and this happened, but it literally is the most predictable here. It's just comfort food for people that like that. It's very predictable, best of, beat by beat.
Well, like... It's so beat by beat, so predictable that, like, I thought that the case that was the true story was the Amityville story for a good portion of the movie.
I think it is a different case, though, right?
Yeah, I think so. I didn't look into any of this. I don't know who the paranormal experts are, but it's like, oh, we bought an old house at like a discounted price. We don't want to pay the mortgage. Let's say that it's possessed, and
that's the Amityville. Yeah.
I feel like that's these stories in general. I thought that fake cockroach just moved, and I freaked out for a moment.
The opening of this movie, not the opening, but fairly in the beginning, quickly in the beginning, Ron Livingston and his wife are decorating, remodeling, fixing things up, and they find this this back closet, and they knock this wood panel off, which immediately was the same story as the Amityville Horror. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, let's go down here. It looks like we have more storage space. So they go down there and start investigating. He's like, oh, I guess I'll start working on the furnace. It's like, you cannot buy is this a second furnace in the house? You can't buy a fucking house with the furnace when you don't know where the furnace is. You have to look at the furnace before you buy the house. It has to be looked at. It has to be running. Why would you buy a house without it running? Are they squatters? What the fuck is going on?
Right,
is that a second furnace? That. It made no sense. Like that would not be blocked off. Somebody would have had to get down there and looked at the furnace and made sure it worked. You wouldn't move into a house without. There's so many things wrong with it. It makes literally no sense, and it's in the first 5 minutes. Like it's just like it drove me mad. I'm like, does somebody not understand? Like, or did that really happen in real life? Are these people just that stupid?
Maybe they were just gonna burn wood in the fireplaces. I don't know.
Yeah, but if you look around and there's a bunch of ductwork in the house, you'd be like, this house should have a furnace. It just made absolutely no sense, and it was really sloppy. It was really in the beginning. Like, if that'd be like breaking through the wall here and then finding out that there was an air conditioning unit. It just made no sense.
Well, in the beginning,
and I don't think that's nitpicky. That's insanity.
Well, what was it? It's not Rainn Wilson.
Patrick Wilson.
Patrick Wilson.
Who I actually like. He's the best part of the movie.
Yeah, he's a fine actor. He was in a few that we've seen, but
Hard Candy and Bone Tomahawk and In the Tall Grass, all great in those movies.
Yeah, but he's talking about his line of work and how he studies demons and it's demonology, and demons are things that never walk the earth. They were never human. That was like the big thing.
I learned that from Night of the Demons.
And but then we're trying to figure out the origins of why the house is haunted, and the house is haunted not because it's demons, but because it's real people, and like a witch, and then the maid of the witch, and the witch down the street, and it's not demons, it's ghosts, it's real people.
But Annabelle, was she a demon or something? The whole thing with Annabelle in the very beginning, when they showed the doll, I laughed. And it wasn't me being crossing my arms. When they showed the doll, I was kind of excited to watch this. This was gonna be a creepy, good ghost story. And then literally they show the Annabelle doll, and it was the way they filmed it. I was just the whole opening.
Oh yeah, whole opening. Yeah.
So they record the Warrens. I feel record or document what happened, right? Mm-hmm. And the opening, it confused me because I feel we're watching what's happening and having this girl explain everything that happened, and I'm like, is this a recreation? Because I could understand the piss poor acting if it was a recreation. But I don't think it is. I think it's supposed to be maybe them documenting the footage. But anyways, the acting in the opening from everybody except the Warrens was so bad that I was baffled. I was like, how much is this? Is this a cheap movie? Maybe it was.
It was utter dog shit. I'm not gonna lie.
You're exaggerating. It's
not that bad. It was bad. That opening with the 70s girls.
Oh, the opening was bad.
That's
I thought you meant the entire movie. I was like, the entire movie's not that bad.
No.
The opening was bad.
It
was so bad. I figured in the movie it had to be a recreation,
right?
Because they were showing.
I thought that the whole movie was going to be about the doll.
No, that's Annabelle.
I don't know this stuff.
There's 3 Annabelle movies, 2 Conjuring movies, The Nun. They're all in the same universe.
This is the MCU of shit. Okay. WandaVision's great, by the way.
Okay. And this is by a guy named, they call it the Wanaverse. Or I've heard people call it the Wanaverse.
WandaVision?
James Wan. His name's Wan. This guy who did Saw.
Oh, I thought it was a Wanaverse.
And Insidious as well.
Okay.
And Death Sentence and Dead Silence, the latter 2 I really like. It's just not for me, and it's I don't sound like an ass here, but it's just placating to very religious people and ghost hunters, and ghost hunting in general is very stupid to me. It makes me laugh. I can't help it. I think it's ridiculous. And it's whatever people do, whatever they want to do is fine.
Right, and I don't want. I didn't research the trueness of anything. I didn't research the real people involved, but the idea that the paranormal experts were con artists
in real life, but in the film version they're different.
And in this one, it's like they're not. They're like the legit thing, but like when they like introduce themselves and like we're talking to the family, like interviewing them to get the information, like they're playing it off like a con.
Yeah.
Like the dad's like, oh, it knocks 3 times every day at this time, and Wilson's like, oh, it's because they're mocking the Trinity. It's like he's just like saying these things off the top of his head, just like responding to the information they're given. And then like on top of that, like the fact that in real life it was a con, or they were con people, and the fact that it plays out so
Some
well.
people don't think they are, but a lot of people do.
I don't know. I don't put any stock into paranormal activity of any kind. I mean, I'm terrified of aliens, but I mean,
I've always preferred the Lovecraftian horrors because it's something that we're not familiar with. So it's when you say old gods and stuff, it's like, I can't just hire an exorcist or a priest or something. This is something that predates that, and it scares me. Like, it predates that. And it's just a weird thing to me where the unknown's more scary than what you're dealing with. That's why I prefer the original Evil Dead over the remake, because it's more Lovecraftian. And I just think it gets dumb when we get to the Christian possession. And I do like possession movies. Like The Exorcist is a classic, and
Beetlejuice. That's the best one.
Demons is not a possession movie, but then we have like Night of the Demons, which they would be probably Christian demons, I would guess, suggested, but it's not really focused in that. It's more the Halloween kind of thing. I don't know. It just doesn't work for me because it just doesn't. I never invest in these kind of movies, and just saying that I don't believe that kind of stuff is not why I don't like it, because I do like stuff like The Changeling, which more of a mystery. Even though there is a mystery in this, figuring what happened, it doesn't ever seem very focused in its mystery, like The Changeling, which is basically a procedural, or Devil's Backbone, or The Ring, where you're legitimately trying to figure out what's going to happen. I love those movies. Those are great movies. I just don't get this. This is just literally a best of the 70s done at 50%. Like, it's like, no, we got the Exorcist scene. And then we got the Amityville scene.
Right.
And then we got this scene. It literally feels like every beat. And then we got the creepy doll.
The creepy crawling on the stairs, and like girls in white running in the hallways, and
it's everything.
And that's the thing. Like the movie, it's not necessarily like a bad movie. It's not because I don't believe in ghosts that it's not scary.
Yeah.
It's just when there's all the other movies that you could watch, go watch those movies. I mean, watch what inspired
Watch Poltergeist.
Watch Poltergeist. Watch
Amityville. Exorcist.
Just a few months ago, we watched Noroi.
That's a totally underrated ghost. It's not even it's supernatural weird.
It's supernatural weird, but
love it.
In Noroi, they do like a lot of the scares are the fact that they film something and you don't notice it, and then they bring it to your attention later. And, I really thought that this movie would do something similar, you know what I mean? Yeah. Why couldn't they just put, a little ghoulie man under the stairs that you wouldn't notice until they ran past the second time? I mean, that stuff to me is always... under the stairs. I don't know, that stuff is always, upsetting to me. They do it in Signs. Like the leg in the cornfield always got to me.
Here's what the thing is. It's a greatest hits, and it's a throwback to a bunch of movies that everyone loved. Mm-hmm. So when they were like, "Oh, it's just something that I haven't seen in a very long time, done well," none of the things worked for me, but it works for a lot of other people. It's something that people missed seeing, a big spooky kind of, not too offensive, too violent, or too different, because it's very not different. It's very run of the mill, except just well done. And they get to see it on the big screen. It gets this popularity, gets this buzz. It's also something that's very approachable for 90% of the horror crowd or everyday people can check out. Mm-hmm. So I can see its appeal, but at the same time, when I watch something like this, I need a little bit different kind of going on, or I need a more dramatic approach to it. Like I said, George C. Scott struggling with the loss of his family, or Don't Look Now, or anything. Even movies I watched for the first time years ago, and I think back on them, I didn't maybe like them when they came out or saw them when they came out, but I think back on certain movies and I'm like, you know what? No, that was good, or that was different, or that was something that had me thinking about it for a long time. Mm-hmm. And this just was very forgettable for me.
Well, and I wonder if it's...
I knew everything was going to be okay.
Well, yeah, everything's going to be okay. was that Possession of Emily Rose that came out
in the 2005
like
Exorcism of
2005.
Emily Rose.
I watched that one. You know
that's different though because it's a mixture of a courtroom drama too.
They're in a barn.
There's a part of a barn, but also it seems a little bit more realistic. It's based on a true story too. I'm going to rewatch that for 2005, and I saw that in theaters. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time since I've seen that, but I wonder if like it's like the same thing with the Hammer stuff, where I'm just like maybe because we watched Amityville and Exorcism recently, if we watch these types of movies, so it's like it's a ghost one. It's like when we were watching the Hammer ones, we had like 3 mummies back to back.
We didn't have 3 mummies back to back, but I understand what you're
like
saying.
There are like 15 mummies.
There's
in that
4
Hammer
mummies.
series.
And the last one's not even a mummy movie. The last one's based off the book and a jewel of whatever, and it's insane. It doesn't make any sense. I understand. We weren't getting tired, but never did we walk away from those Hammer movies thinking, I hate this.
I did a few times.
The mummy ones.
That's it. But the Draculas did start to get fun towards the end.
I like almost all the Draculas, to be honest. I like them all, and I have appreciation for them more than something like this because it's a genre I'm into, like gothic stuff, so I can pick up stuff. Like I feel like I'm picking up things here. This is just like, it comes down to my subjectivity is not for this. Like newer ghost films just don't do much for me. They never have, and they probably never will.
You're talking about
American ghost stories that are made in the last 20 years don't do much for me.
No, they're garbage. But anyways, you were talking about Heathers earlier, which is the only film ever made.
Stop.
And, you know, the greatest ghost story ever made.
It's not a ghost story.
It's Beetlejuice. Also, there's ghosts in the Heathers. Heather Chandler shows up like 3 times after she's dead. In the church scene, maybe one other scene I can't remember. So Heathers.
So you're saying just because Glenn Shadex is in the movie and he's in Beetlejuice, which involves
with Winona Ryder,
does that have anything to do with that? Makes no sense. This is
I'm just trying to bring
your
like
whole tunnel vision. This is like tunnel vision where you
I
come
just
back
want to talk about Heathers. That's all I want to talk about, you guys.
We'll have high school horror movies or high school oriented. I just talked about that because I was talking about Heathers, and I was stuff like Tragedy Girls and Assassination Nation and Spontaneous and Freaky and Final Girls. I feel like those all fit somewhat. Final Girls just in tone.
But why watch any of those? Just watch Heathers.
Stop it. No.
Just watch Amityville.
But honestly, watch The Exorcist, Amityville, and Poltergeist and call it a day. I know that sounds rude, but this is a mixture. This is like it's like if you buy like the greatest hits of like all the 80s or something, the 70s, greatest hits of the 70s, but all the dirty lyrics are cut out. You get The Conjuring. The greatest hits of the 70s ghost stories and possession stories, but all the naughty bits are cut out.
Right.
All the thought-provoking stuff, and then at the very end, it ends on a very generic quote by the Warren. It just also rubs me the wrong way because I think the Warrens were shisty people, and then they're at the end like they're giving people these religious quotes. It's no better than a televangelist to me, and then it comes across as religious propaganda. I'm sorry, and I have no problem with religion. I just have a problem when there's shisty people behind it.
Right. And also and
it is a fictional movie, so I shouldn't do that.
I've only seen Patrick Wilson in I don't know why I confuse their names, in like 2 other movies, and he was kind of like a shitty person. So
he's so good in those movies.
Right, so I'm watching this, and I'm like, oh, that guy's a motherfucker. You don't trust him.
They improved his hairline immensely in this movie in comparison to Hard Candy. But whoever did the makeup on his hair was great.
Yes.
But there's also another thing. I should bring up the 1991 movie, The Haunted, which is a TV movie which has the Warrens in it too.
Really?
But it's completely different. It's not like they're not the main focus point. They just come in, and it's part of the true story as well. And I actually prefer The Haunted, that cheap 1991 movie, over this. I know it's like it has Jeffrey DeMunn in it, and it feels real. The family feels real. And in this remake, I almost called it a remake. In The Conjuring, the family doesn't register with me. I don't know who they are. I don't care who they are. They're just vessels, and they're in the literal sense and the metaphorical film sense. I guess they're vessels.
Did you ever see Haunting in Connecticut?
Yes, we watched that years ago, and I don't remember a thing about it.
I always confuse that movie with this movie, but that one is the one with the slime in it, right?
I don't know. I told you I don't remember a thing ever. I don't remember Haunting in Connecticut being anywhere special to me either.
I thought that was fun. But it did involve more slime.
Yeah, slime.
So I wonder if
that's what this is missing. Ghostbusters 2 is 10 times better than Conjuring because of the slime. No, but The Haunting in Connecticut 2 is called Haunting in Connecticut 2 Ghost of Georgia.
Stop it!
And it's just like, if whoever was the PR person on there should have been like, get out.
Right, like...
The ghost that man, we got that Haunting in Connecticut's doing gangbusters. What are we gonna do? Well, we got this Ghost of Georgia movie. Hold my beer.
Right.
All right, I'm sorry. I know you love this movie, and you're like, Dave, you just talked about White Rose Campus 2 weeks ago, which is just a bunch of perverts raping schoolgirls on a bus, and you gave it a recommend. And you're telling me The Conjuring isn't worth your time. That's who I am. And like, I only have so many of these like weird, crazy opinions that like after you have like 15 or 20 of those consecutively, people just start to think you're the crazy guy who's like you can't take their opinion seriously anymore. Like I don't want to point out any names in the reviewing world, but there is a couple of guys where you're like, well, they like this and you like that. You start to like, maybe as you older you get, the weirder you get. So it is like, I don't like it because it's got a guy with brown hair next to a guy with blonde hair, and then people are like, you've lost your fucking mind, haven't you? And you're like, I hit my head.
Just not enough slime in this movie.
Not enough.
Or Glenn Shadix.
Conjuring 2, or Conjuring, not very good. Not enough slime.
Right.
Where was Glenn Shadix?
That's the sequel.
There is 2. It's the
Conjuring 2, where's Glenn Shadix?
He died.
At the bottom of the stairs.
Get out.
Okay.
Stop. That's not funny.
No, it's not.
R.I.P. Glenn Shadix. Next week is Arsenic and Old Lace. That is your pick.
Yes.
Which should be fun.
Maybe.
Angela Lansbury's in it.
I think so.
Is she in it?
Is it Angela Lansbury or is it some other... Who's the one that's not Angela Lansbury? I'm thinking
Maggie Smith?
It's one of those two.
Okay, maybe it's not.
Yeah.
We'll find out. It's probably not. It's going to be like one of these classic...
It's
like,
Betty Davis.
It's
Davis
not Betty
Bessie.
Davis. David Bessie's a power plant. Okay, this podcast is over.
Oh, we didn't rate it,
This isn't a podcast.
No, I don't podcast. You all get to see my beautiful face.
Okay.
What's your rating out of 10 you do? We didn't read the book, so our thing's all messed up.
Yeah, there's no book. I shouldn't say this.
It's just a cat hair.
Technically,
Technically.
it's a better movie than I'm giving it credit for.
Yeah.
But I'll mix subjectives up 6 out of 10. Probably. I honestly feel subjectively it's like I would never watch it again. Fuck it. 5. 5. We give it a 5. I don't like it.
I mean, you did pause it to make hotel reservations.
I had to.
We also paused it to make dinner.
We didn't.
I think my bagel was slightly moldy.
Stop.
So there were slime involved, I guess, technically.
That like takes away some of our like we paused it once. It was like 30 minutes in, and I was like staring and watching, and then like every beat, I was like, didn't I look at you a couple times? I was like, was that as bad as I thought it was? Like,
I don't know. I was trying to.
Sorry, man. I don't get it. You're talking to a guy who's not very picky. It's just not a genre I like.
I'm very picky.
I'm very picky in this genre.
2 out of 5.
4. Yeah, that's rough. It's a better movie than that. It's just not something I like.
Maybe, but I'd rather watch Noroi again.
Oh yeah, I'd rather watch
or
No
Beetlejuice or Heathers
or any other ghost or Changeling or Amityville, Exorcist.
Your Changeling and my Changeling are not the same Changeling.
I like the one with George C. Scott.
I like the one with John Malkovich and
Never seen
Angela
that.
Lansbury.
Next week is
Angelina
Arsenic and
Jolie.
Angelina Jolie.
Yeah.
Get out. We're done.
Bye.
All right, let's get into these questions. Where did you get that box of Tokyo Shock DVDs, and is it completely random what you get? I got it on eBay. I think he's sold out of them now, and it was completely random, and there was a lot of doubles. I got 2 boxes, so there's kind of 2 double. I got some doubles. Blu-ray Collector NL. How much was the Godzilla set and the Bruce Lee set one, bro? I got those when they were Criterion 50% off one-day flash sale. So I think the Godzilla was like $113 and the Bruce Lee was like $63 or something like that. So if you want that price, wait till the Criterion sale. Get it right when they started on Barnes & Noble, and you could probably get the same price. Ken Coakley, what's your favorite horror movie quote? Mine is, your suffering will be legendary even in hell, from Hellbound Hellraiser 2. A close second is the iconic, when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth, from the Dawn of the Dead. I remember seeing billboards with that line on top, with Dawn. The quote, in my opinion, was part of the legend. I would completely agree. I'll give you my favorite quote from Hellraiser 2. There's so many quotes that I absolutely love. Just some off the top of my head. You gotta be fucking kidding me, from The Thing. Henry, it's either you or them, or... where he's like, "You look terrible." There's just so many stuff and a million movies, so it's best just to pick a movie and pick the favorite quote from that. And I will pick from one of your favorites here, Hellraiser 2, when Channard is changed into the Channard Cenobite, and he walks out and he looks around for a second and he says, "To think. And to think I hesitated." That's just such a good line, such a good moment in the film, and it's just such a turn of the character finally accepting who he's become and who he really was all along. Love Hellraiser 2, if you guys don't know that. Love Channard, and I used to be a little annoyed with Channard killing the Cenobites, but now I fully embrace Channard as my favorite character in that movie. Just guess the best character arc of all the time. But for Dawn of the Dead, I mentioned the line, "Ain't it a crime? The only person who can miss with this gun would be the sucker with the bread to buy it." I think that is a fantastically underrated line in the 70s caliber. But on that whole speech, almost everything that Ken Foree says in that whole moment where he says, Makuma voodoo, granddad was a priest in church. That whole moment is so well constructed because they do the speech and you have Galen Ross grab the coat and you can see visually her get the chill that she got when he said that, and then it cuts to the zombies banging and then the one on the ground does that hiss. Perfect scene. Just editing well too, edited really well, and fantastic, and all the music and sound cues work perfectly. There's so many good lines in that movie. Dummies, this is not political rhetoric. That whole speech, this is not the Republicans versus the Democrats where they got us in an economic, that whole thing is great. Everything he says is a great quote. One of my favorite, I'm just going off Dawn of the Dead because that's where you got my mindset and it's one of my favorite movies, but, the people it kills get up and kill. The people it kills get up and kill. That whole thing right there, the back and forth between David Early and that's a great stuff too. And then there's some Day of the Dead quotes that I absolutely love. "Let him go, goddammit, or I'll cut you in half." Come on. And then everything Rhodes says and Steele says, right? or Rickles, everybody. Just so many good quotes. That's impossible to pick a favorite quote, to be honest. There's just so many good quotes. And then I guess we have some answers, which I probably shouldn't have asked this question because it immediately started controversy and there was people fighting and being rude to each other. And it's just like, if you don't like what somebody says, just scroll on past it now. Come on now. So I basically said any movies that are so dated to make you uncomfortable, and I went back and changed it, or I said make you, kind of not just uncomfortable, but make you kind of distracted. So Sherlock horror, much as I love them, some of the early James Bond films have their, and let me get this through first too. I'm against complete censorship. I take movies in the context they were made, but every once in a while you can't be like, oh, that didn't date very well, or that's embarrassing for them. Doesn't mean I'm offended. Doesn't mean I think the movie should be banned. It means what it means. It means it looks dated. It doesn't work today. But I'm not holding that against the movie when I rate it at the end. Typically, I will not. Every once in a great while, something is so dated when it comes to CGI that it actually hurts the movie really bad in terms of believability. But not in how characters act necessarily, you know what I mean, even if it's dated for that time. But we have Sherlock horror. Much as I love them, some of the early James Bond films have their fair share of uncomfortable moments. In the first one, Dr. No, Sean Connery very casually barks an order at a black sidekick to go fetch Bond's shoes. In Goldfinger, Bond infamously forces himself on Pussy Galore, and the sex is so good she defects from side of evil. In Thunderball, he is just as bad, repeatedly fondling a beautiful nurse despite her constant resistance. Yes, it's played for laughs mostly, showing how smooth Bond is. And I don't consider myself a prude, but some of those early scenes are just a bit too much. Still nothing compared to the original Bond books themselves, which are very much a product of their time. And then we have, on a completely different note, the 2011 movie The Lady is not the easiest watch nowadays. It stars the great Michelle Yeoh as Aung San Suu Kyi. I think that's wrong, and tells the story of how she spent over 10 years under house arrest for her radical political reform in Myanmar. The movie depicts her as a selfless heroine, an icon to aspire to, which is how she was seen at the time. But in recent years, the controversy over her alleged role in the genocide of Myanmar has cast a shadow over the movie. It's honestly a bit strange seeing someone be held up in such high praise when she'd have such a huge fall from grace just a few years later. Also want to throw in my belated vote for the review of the Godzilla series, despite what I said about James Bond would be cool too. Ken Coakley. I can't think of movies that make me cringe uncomfortable, but 80s movies make me cringe and laugh because the decade as a whole was lame. The horror movies were good, but outdated, and I choose thrash over the pop garbage. I remember seeing The Last House on the Left in 2006 in an all-night marathon, and these people were laughing at the beginning because of the 70s fashions. I leaned forward and said, I think it's only fair to tell you that you won't be laughing in 20 minutes. The movie's going to be really rough. 20 minutes later, they were all freaking out crying. I love it. I do love 80s movies, though. I can't help it. I grew up in... I was born in 86, but I was in the video store from the time I was 4 till they closed. So I was always renting 80s movies. And I do think the 80s horror movies are great, objectively. So, hey. Carson Morton, he says the 80s were awesome. And Ken Coakley responds, you must have been born in the 80s or after. I was in high school from 82 to 86, and life was no John Hughes film. Horror movies and thrash metal got me through. One upside was seeing Metallica with the late Cliff Burton. Yeah, that's awesome with it. But, yeah, I mean, I didn't grow up on John Hughes movies. I grew up more with horror movies myself. And I do think that when we're not talking horror, the 70s, everything in the 70s, probably even the horror movies for the most part, blow the 80s out, you know, in terms of, like, discussion even. But I love the 80s horror movies almost as much as the 70s horror movies. I just can't vouch saying they're better than the 70s because they're not. Dead Flintstone. In Revenge of the Nerds, there's plenty of tacky behavior, including a straight-up sexual assault by Lewis. Nevertheless, I still have a soft spot for the movie. Creepy dudes are just a hallmark of those 80s teen sex comedies. I remember watching Revenge of the Nerds. I watched Revenge of the Nerds 50, 60 times. I love that movie to death. I showed somebody it one day, and it's like the breaking moment for me, where I'm like, this is great, right? And they're like, he just raped that girl. I was like, yeah, guess he did. And it's just like, it kind of clicked there. I still love the movie. Nobody should take any life lessons from Revenge of the Nerds. If you do, don't watch any more movies, especially from the 80s. But, yeah, I remember that when that hit me. And then we have Craig Blake, doesn't exist. Movies reflect the times they were made. Okay. But I understand what he's saying, but at the same time, you could still be like, that's dated. That doesn't age well. And still be like, well, it's the 80s, so it doesn't really matter. I'm not saying this movie should be banned, this movie should be burned, but you could say, didn't age very well. But it was 1967. You know what I mean? Like, and I think more recent years are the ones that bother me more. Because I grew up in them. And maybe I lived them. And maybe I was guilty of some of the shit in there. So watching it, you're like, you start cringing and be like, yeah, we probably did some of that. Or we probably said some stuff that would hurt people's feelings now and didn't mean that. But it looks bad. And it just takes me to that place. You know what I mean? But when it comes to like 60s and people are like, man, I don't like how they're treating Native Americans. I was like, it's like the 60s. Like, I mean, like that's cowboy movie in general has that deal. But I understand it's dated. I just don't, it doesn't make me cringe as much. And then we have Michael Wilmenmeyer-Skirch, and he posts Freddy Got Fingered, gif of that. And then what do we have? Michael Wormshine again says, Dave, the end of the strange era of MTV. Addison Heath, The Lost Boys, never been a fan, but holy shit, that thing has aged terribly. I love Lost Boys, saxophone and all. Zach Puccinelli on both of his accounts has to post Return of the Living Dead. Nonsense. Aged wonderfully. Jamal Porter, or Potter, The Lawnmower Man. Although I've noticed a lot of mainstream films in the late 80s and 90s have dated very poorly. Yeah, Lawnmower Man. We joke around about being state of the art. It always looked like shit. It wasn't even good at the time it came out. Peter McCain. It's usually bad CGI like Escape from L.A., Matrix Reloaded, and the start of Event Horizon that doesn't sit well with me. Sean David Petrie. Blade. Particularly the end. Nicholas Hunt, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie. I'm telling Ivan Ooze on you. He's not going to be happy. Derek Heath, Pretty Little Maids All in a Row. David Luton, D.W. Griffin's The Birth of a Nation, 1915. A film that was technically brilliant and established cinematic technique that we still use today, but narratively is horribly racist. Still a landmark film, though. And Jason Lindbergh, Don't Believe That Word. Basically, he goes on, we talk a little bit about here, and talk about he hates overrated and underrated too, but those kind of words are kind of funny at the same time, because the most popular movies of all time, there's going to be a decent percent of the population that thinks they're overrated, and the worst movie of all time, one person's going to like it and think it's underrated. So there we go. It's all perspective on that one. Adrian All, everything from the 80s. Carol Downing, there are plenty of movies that are quite dated, especially from the 40s onward, as they reflect the exceptions, societal norms of the times they were made, of course. Hell, 80s and 90s movies are dated and even more recent when they reference fads of the time that future generations are not going to get. I agree. Peter England, the James Bond movies with Pierce Brosnan. Cameron Miscaslin, rewatch Never Been Kissed with my wife on Valentine's Day. Wow, it's problematic now. I never watched that movie, so I don't know. Usually the ones that are like, they have like basic rapes. Like in the 70s and 80s, it's just like, bother them till they love you. Bother them till they say yes. And nowadays we know, like, yeah. But it's, like I said, different time. Lee Jones, I don't think uncomfortable was the best word choice here, as discomfort implies emotional or physiological distress, but I'd say that in the most general terms, the thing in movies that have aged the worst, thus taking me out of the viewing experience and reminding me that the movie is in question is a product of a certain time, is early CGI. Alex DaVincio, anything with homophobia, sexism, racism, etc. that was considered fine at the time, but we now realize was wrong. I feel like 80s comedies are the worst offenders, but it was rampant in all genres, especially at the time. And then some people start getting an argument about the whole thing. Daryl Marsh, Birth of the Nation, Bo Ransdell, Stay Away, Joe with Elvis. I've seen a couple of Elvis ones, and which ones did I see? Chimera? What's Charo, and the Galahad Kid are the two I've seen. Probably dated, but I don't think anything was too offensive in them for people. Peter England, basically, Guess Who's Going to College? What's he got here? I'm not 100% sure. I think he posted a GIF. I didn't really get it. I messed up and didn't write what he posted the picture of. Sorry about that. I don't remember. Sorry about Peter. Don Adams, the CGI in the It movies makes me uncomfortable and dates them from now. Jason Kleberg, 1995's White Man's Burden. I've not seen that. Cody Lee Harden, Clown House. For the first time ever, naming Clown House correctly. Jordan Bibby, nope, nothing at all. Dustin Mills, Short Circuit 1 and 2. Loved them as a kid, but now the brown-face antics are jaw-dropping. Kayla Elizabeth responds, Your Mother Was a Snowblower. Terrence Cover, 16 Candles. Jason A. Wallace, not so much a movie as how the editing was so silly in the late 80s with insert shots that are completely different lighting or way out of place with other photography and all the silly singles while big heads sat in trailers instead of helping fellow actors. I messed up and didn't put Seymour. I know what he means, like the stand-ins and stuff like that. Kelly Casson Kurtrim, this is a hard question. Gene von Barnard, Deadcon, David Morvan, Porky's, kinda. Matthew Hudson, most of the time I am pretty good at watching stuff in the mindset of the time its creation. Some movies certainly haven't aged well, but I can take that. A good example that probably won't be brought up is Monster Squad. Still love the movie, but there's a fat shaming, homophobia, and it does promote smoking is cool to kids. I still love the damn thing though, and I will until I die. And really almost all those things are true from almost every 80s film and the kids going on an adventure. There is, however, one movie I used to love, but I doubt we'll be able to watch again. Bill Cosby himself. Yep, that one is gone forever gone for me. Bill Cosby is definitely done. Because, like, Bill Cosby, it was, like, the last guy I would think. And then it was just like, oh, man, it's actually the last person you think is bad. But as far as Monster Squad is, I never had a problem when they portrayed bad people in a negative light. Like the bullies. And I think using that word for a kid's movie is probably dated now. But I think, like, 13 probably could watch that more. I think that one, it's dated, but I think the age just hires on it. Although I feel like there's nothing wrong with me, and maybe there is something wrong with me. Nothing serious. I'm fine. I watched lots of crazy movies. I was watching Hellraiser at age 9, 10, so I don't know if I would worry about my kid watching some stuff really that young. It's a different time though. Okay. Dustin Mills responds, Matthew Hudson, Monster Squad forever, but yeah, it's got issues. Horace gets his big moment, the homophobic, he responds here, I didn't read his response before. Getting old. Horace gets his big moment, and the homophobic slurs mostly come from mean kids. I can excuse those for the most part. The thing that gets weirder for me every time I watch is the virgin stuff. It's bizarre. I think about Bill Cosby himself all the time. As a kid, the movie was the funniest thing I've ever seen, and I would quote it constantly. I loved it so much. Now everything the man has touched is irrelevantly, sorry about that. That word's a tongue twister for me right now. I can't do it. I am a dum-dum today, tainted by his crimes. It makes me really sad, and having loved that movie so much leaves a sour taste in my mouth. You ever do that where you like see a word and you say it 10 times the day before, but then when it's spelled out, you just get tongue-tied? People are probably like, no, you're dumb. Don't make excuses, but hey, dumb. Oh well. Matthew Hudson, I wanted to point out the virgin stuff, but I was really tired when I wrote that and couldn't articulate it. I used to be able to quote Bill Cosby in its entirety. I honestly probably still could. B.J. Colangelo, 16 Candles, Virginia Shine. I remember liking State and Maine for the fun Hollywood jokes. Pulled out the DVD and watched it not too long ago. Man, so cringy. Post, hashtag me too. Salvador Funkenstein. 2 I can think of right off the bat. Cabin Fever and Boondock Saints. Thought it was cool when I was younger, but it's so cringe now. Then we have some comments. Tolbarone 007. I appreciate you going after the language subject. It's as complicated as we want to make it. I use the Rawls cloak of blindness to help me personally decide what language to use. I respect humor as long as it's as the direction of the joke is good. I have no doubt that 22 shots means no harm. However, they have a responsibility about what they say. They have crossed the line a few occasions, probably unknowingly, but should now try to embrace the criticism. I mean, yes, I think I understand. Like I've been on the show too, where like some stuff has got out of hand, but I think like most of the time I just like jokes are jokes, and we always said that jokes are jokes. But certain language I do think is like, that's too much. And it mostly, like we said, we've kind of addressed some of that, and Jeremy said he's going to be better about it because Jeremy likes to make jokes that are really offensive that don't really have a punchline, so the joke in itself is the offensive thing, and we're all just like, okay, we get it, not funny, but that's just this kind of thing, you know. It is what it is. I've talked about it, like I don't particularly like it either, but you're gonna be better about it, so hopefully that helps. Issa Misio, The Queen of Black Magic is the best horror film I've seen in 2021 so far. Build-up was great, and school bus scene was creepy, but third act kind of dropped for me. The CGI centipedes were hilarious, though. Yeah, not sure why people are so hard on Zombie. Devil's Rejects is awesome. Didn't even hate 31 because of Doomhead. Doomhead was such a strong character for me. I'm indifferent about his remakes because I was never a big fan of Halloween franchise except for Season of the Witch. The fact that people are berating him for casting his wife is ridiculous. Plenty of directors do that. Simon Sono, Eli Roth before he divorced from Lo Rezenza Izzo, Mike Flanagan, Dario Argento. If you have a craft you're proud of, having your family be that support system and participate in your passion is a great thing. Recently saw The Deeper You Dig, and that movie is pretty much a family project. The type of involvement is commendable. I swear you have like 3 or 4 copies of ID now. Great update. I think I do. 3 at least. Zach Nolan, The Innocents is very spooky. Incarnate, not to sound like a broken record, but you're jamming on scooping up all these fun and wild Japanese flicks lately. Makes me happy. Awesome. Ilk Vomit, wow, I'm really early. There's no Nick Mua comment yet. And he didn't comment this week, which is really weird to me. So then we have... Oh, who said this? Oh, Ilk Vomit still continues on. So I can now rest peacefully knowing you finally got the Godzilla set from Criterion and Bruce Lee, which I hope you start reviewing as soon as next week. Unfortunately, I don't think so. And a giveaway for patrons only? Come on, Dave. What about all us loyal listeners? I'll do something. The BizCut Bip horror reviews. Joy of Torture is a really wild film, especially for 68. Not particularly gory, but it's got some seriously rough sequences. The sequel to its Shogun Sadism is also very rough, but it's more splatter-focused and gory. Good review as always, Dave. Thank you. Then we have Peekaboo. This is pretty long, so bear with me. The funny side notes with the Ebola syndrome is that the Cantonese words "yu bom li" means Ebola. You might hear it when you pronounce it in Cantonese, even if you aren't fluent. The second, as you mentioned, he's being a bully, and he doesn't understand and gets even more mad. I can't remember what word they used towards him in the movie, but just out of coincidence, I'd like to share this different words you can use to describe bully in Cantonese. Weexie, Weixie, to menace, Dippy, bully, and then Kuya, to bully, and Qu, to bully. And then the funny thing, woman, to bully, humiliate. You always pronounce the word woman as you pronounce woman in English. So if that was the word they used towards him in the movie, he might have taken offense. Plus, there are a bunch of insanely funny quotes from him in the movie also. Typically Chinese humor, basically all men are pigs and only have one thing on their minds. Women are useless and only in the way to cause problems. Not saying it is so, but their humor derives from that, and it does really well. Queen of Black Magic sounds and looks really great. Just read that there are 4 different CGI departments for the movie. Not seen the original myself, nor the other movies from the makers of this one. I seriously need to rewatch House of Thousand Corpses, remember it being quite good, and The Devil's Rejects, which you reviewed here. Did not care first, and so far only view, but as more you talked about it, I went with William Forsythe is indeed underrated. About the monster meter you and Jeremy talked about, where would Aquaman fit in that? Remember Aquaman just wanted to hug people, a joke I came up with as I wrote the review on it. I even wrote a poem for Aquaman. Octoman. Okay, so where would Octoman fit in the monster meter? Definitely towards the Man of Wars from Stingray. Maybe a little bit higher. I mean, there's that whole rumor with the Octoman suicide and stuff like that, so it's weird. Not a second, I think, or even felt that since Mrparka is a hypocrite or being rude. Understand your point on the matter. I think when directors screen renders right characters in their lines, it is they want to make them bad or at least unlikable. Can't remember the specific quotes from Hostel being offensive or anything. Maybe because I used to way worse things done to me or said. As long as it said I saw the entire trilogy. By the way, the third wanted me to see a fourth movie since it was played out in Las Vegas and I had a friend who works there as an exotic dancer. Stripper, and crazy story she has told me is really screwed up. Your update is just wow. Sorry for the long text. Keep doing what you're doing. Oh, I have no problem with villains being portrayed as villains. In fact, I want them to be portrayed as villains, and I always felt stuff like Becky kind of wussed out when those bad guys, they should have been bad guys. I think you actually send a false message when you can make a great character, but when you get down to the point of making like a character in Becky, which is like very reminiscent of, Fight for Your Life or something like that, they should be bad. I do like gray bad characters, but I feel like characters like in Becky should have talked more like trash people than they did. But yeah, I guess we're going to hop into the update. Oh, question of the week. I almost missed it again. I keep doing this. But since I got that new 85-inch QLED Samsung TV, I want to know what movies look best in 4K. What 4K movies look the best, okay? So shoot out some ones. I mean, there's some I have, but what 4K movies are absolutely the best of the cream of the crop? So tell me some, all right? Okay, let's hop into this update. First, a couple 4Ks. We got Ghostbusters. That's right. If I'm going to rewatch Ghostbusters, might as well watch it in 4K. Bustin' makes me feel good. All right, then we have Hereditary, which I only saw the one time in theaters, and I want to revisit it. Definitely probably going to have to watch it for the summer series anyways. I can't imagine this does not make the final list. A very popular movie. I remember liking it. It's one of those movies that a lot of these movies like that, I walk out of the theater and I don't know what to think, and you'll usually end up being the best movies around, you know what I mean? Typically, the ones that kind of shock you, like, how did I feel about that? Then we have The Bride with White Hair from Mrparka. This movie looks awesome. I've not seen it. Cool addition as well. And then we got Mr. Vampire. This movie's really fun, from 1985. Yeah, from Mrparka, the special edition here. I hope they release the other ones. I've never seen the other ones. There's a bunch of them. There's the Mr. Vampire 2, 3, 4, and then Vampire vs. Vampire, and there's some other ones too. So then we have Black Magic 2 from 88 Films. I do have one on the way. I've never seen the Black Magic movies, so yeah. And then we have the Enchanting Ghost, another 88 Films release from their Asian line. And then we have the Handmaiden, double disc edition, the extended. I almost said the erotic version, the extended and the theatrical versions here. Heard good things about this movie. I've never actually got to see it. I have face recognition on here, so I apologize. Usually I turn that off for the update. Then we have Personal Shopper from Criterion. Not seen this movie. Kristen Stewart. Let's see. I had to watch the Twilight movies. You guys know that story. So let's see if she can act. I don't know if anybody can act in the Twilight movies. Underwater was good, though. So then we have some stuff I ordered from Vinegar Syndrome. This is Minor Premise. This is actually from a different line, Utopia, though. This is the second Utopia release. So. Then we have Jeremy. Isn't this Still Fun, I think? Then we got a 4K of Sex World from Peakorama from Vinegar Syndrome. Very cool. It's gonna be weird to watch porn in 4K. I kind of want to put it in. Then we have The Fear. Never actually seen The Fear. I remember the cover art very well. Yeah, there's the original cover art I saw. That was at the video store. It's like a Woodman or something like that. It's one that I walked by a million times. Hitcher in the Dark by Lenzi. Very cool. Everybody can retire them old Street Show DVDs, right? Very cool cover. That just would suck you in, like Hitcher in the Dark. I gotta watch this. I've never seen that one. Then we got the Forgotten Gialli box set, Volume 3. That's right. We're gonna continue this on the podcast Under the Stairs. Almost done with Volume 2, actually. Recording tomorrow. What do we got in this bad boy? Autopsy, which I argued at one point isn't that forgotten, because I remember it. I know I've seen that one. Murder Mansion, which I don't think I've seen. Looks fun. It's like some sort of murder mansion. Crazy Desires of a Murderer. Cool. I love this series so far. I hope they keep going forever. I want to do 50 of these sets. I love these boxes, by the way, too. Very cool. Then we got House of Usher, Edgar Allan Poe's. I forgot about this one. This is from the Vinegar Archive. Got to make sure I get all those. They go out of print and they're impossible to get. Oliver Reed, Donald Pleasance. Can't beat that, right? And then some Blu-rays. We have The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Did not have this Blu-ray. Gonna definitely check it out for 05. I actually saw this sucker in the theaters. I remember it. And then some DVDs. Love Bites from Masker Video. This is by the same people that made Venus Flytrap, which is a really solid shot on video film. This is a gay-oriented Dracula movie. I'm not sure how it is, actually. Then we have Nurse Diary, Beast Afternoon from Impulse and the Katza Erotic Films collection. Again, making sure I keep my pervert card here. And then these, I ordered some replacement cases for. I ordered some online because that's why I finally found some. But there's just so many movies that I'm ordering on DVD that don't have a Blu-ray, and the cases are just so gross. I just want to replace them. And this is the Eye, the original. I've never seen this one. Palm. And then we have the Eye 2, another case I'd like to replace. Pang Brothers movie. And finally, the Eye 3. There is a fourth one called The Child's Eye, which I did not get yet. But yeah, that's the first three Eye films, what I call them the Fly. But anyways, back to the video, guys. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. And as always, have a good one.